Okay, let's just dive right in. If you're a financial advisor, there's a question that's probably been hanging in the air lately, especially with the rise of incredibly powerful AI. I mean, when a machine can spit out strategies and projections in a split second, you have to ask yourself, this is the question that gets to the heart of it. And look, let's just be honest. If your value is just about having information, you are in a race you are absolutely going to lose. But here's the thing. That whole question, it's actually based on a huge misunderstanding of what clients really need, especially in a world that's already drowning in answers. And this is where you see the big disconnect. On one side, you have AI, which is amazing at speed, scale, and just pumping out raw data. But on the other side, that is not what an overwhelmed client is actually paying for. They are desperate for someone to provide leadership, to bring clarity to all the chaos, and for someone to just take ownership of their problem. This right here, this is the big idea for today. Because as raw intelligence gets cheaper and easier to find, the human willingness to actually own the problem and guide someone through the decisions, well, that becomes the ultimate, most powerful differentiator. That's your most durable advantage. So, if AI isn't the real enemy, then what is? Well, it turns out the biggest threat to your value isn't some new technology. No, it's a deeply ingrained habit that's way closer to home. It's something we can call reactive mode. So what exactly is reactive mode? You know it well. It's that hamster wheel that so many advisors get stuck on. It's that constant, never-ending cycle of explaining every market dip, calming down anxious clients, and reacting to every single headline. Now, it feels like you're being helpful, but what's really happening? You're just creating endless churn and a slow, painful drift away from the actual goal. And I bet these symptoms sound painfully familiar. Conversations that just go on and on without ever reaching a decision. Choices that get put off or second-guessed constantly. You find yourself practically begging for the client's agreement instead of just setting the direction. And worse, you end up absorbing all of their anxiety. It is completely exhausting, and it just doesn't work. Exactly. All that chasing and reassuring and over-explaining, that's not leadership. It's drift. It's a slow motion move away from making real progress. And it chips away at your authority and your client's confidence bit by bit. So, how in the world do you break out of the cycle? Well, the antidote is a really powerful shift in your mindset. It's called problem ownership, and it's all about moving from reacting to actually leading. Now, wait a minute. I know the second we say the word ownership, a lot of advisors immediately think about risk and liability, but that's a total misunderstanding of what we mean here. Ownership, in this sense, isn't about legal liability. It's about your orientation. It's about you taking control of the situation and pointing everyone towards a clear path forward. And let's be super clear about this difference. Your clients don't actually hire you because they expect a guaranteed outcome. They're smart. They know markets are unpredictable. What they do expect, and what ownership gives them, is certainty of process. You're committing to lead a stable, consistent process, no matter what kind of noise is happening outside. This is what ownership sounds like. It's direct, it's confident, and for a client who is completely overwhelmed, hearing this is a massive relief. Notice what these sentences are not doing. They're not trying to persuade, they're not over-explaining, they simply state the reality and define the very next step. That is leadership. I mean, the difference here is just night and day. Instead of chasing alignment, you set the alignment. Instead of constantly reassuring, you lead. And instead of explaining everything to death, you simply own the process. It's a massive shift from being on defense to playing offense. Okay, but what about accountability? This is probably the biggest fear that holds advisors back from really embracing ownership. But what if we've been looking at accountability all wrong? What if it's not a risk, but actually your greatest protection? So here's the reframe, and it's a crucial one. The point of accountability isn't to pile more pressure onto your shoulders. The point is to create crystal clear alignment with your client. Think about it. When everyone knows exactly what their job is, all that fuzzy gray area and the risk that lives inside it, it just vanishes. And this is what that alignment looks like. You can think of it as a behavioral contract. On your side, you're accountable for the process, the constraints you'll work within, and the sequence of steps. On their side, the client is accountable for making decisions, for following through, and for being totally honest about their situation. See? It's a two-way street. It's mutual. And this all leads to a really powerful aha moment. That very accountability that advisors are so often afraid of, it's the exact same thing that clients are starving for. In a world with a million options and endless noise from AI, they are desperate for the kind of structure and clarity that this leadership provides. So let's just put it all on the table. Avoiding ownership doesn't make you safer. It actually increases your risk. Staying stuck in that reactive mode, where conversations aren't documented, advice is just informal, and the plan changes every other week, that is so much more dangerous than leading from a clear, defined, and mutually agreed upon process. And when you really embrace this, you don't just become a better advisor. You start to build an advantage that cannot be replaced. You literally stop playing the game that AI was designed to win, and you start playing an entirely different and much better game. See, advisors who own problems don't fear AI. They put it to work. They give it a specific job to do inside their process. AI becomes this incredibly powerful tool, right? It can be a research assistant or a scenario tester, but the advisor, you, always remain the authority who owns the problem and leads the client. Just take a second and think about what really lasts in this business. Tools, platforms, even access to information, those are all depreciating assets. Their value is always going down over time. But real behavioral leadership, true problem ownership, deep authority in your niche, that stuff is durable. In a world that just gets noisier, its value only goes up. And this, right here, is the ultimate payoff. When your value is built on a foundation of leadership and ownership, the question of competing with AI, it just becomes irrelevant. You're not even in the same category anymore. You've completely outgrown the comparison. So we'll end with that choice. The path of competing on information and answers, that's a losing battle. But the path of ownership, that's a durable advantage that no machine can ever touch. The real question isn't what technology is going to do to you, it's which path you're going to choose.